Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to the August 2020 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now, let's jump into the questions. Voice of the Emperor asks, how long do orcs live if they aren't killed in a fight? I don't think this has actually been touched upon in lore as far as I'm aware. I'd say at the very least as long as humans, or maybe even as long as Aeldari. So anywhere between 100 to 1,000 years, something along those lines, if I had to guess. What do you think would happen if orcs landed upon Catachan? Not much. I mean, let's be honest, it would be interesting to see the orcs and the Catachan fight, but considering how Catachan kills everything, even demons, when the world was briefly swallowed by the warp during the creation of the Cicatrix Maledictum, and the Catachan were absolutely fine after beating the shit out of the demons, you might get some spores taking root and having a feral orc population, but it's also just as likely that everything on Catachan will just eat the orcs. Brent Feast asks, are the Dark Gods angry or just disappointed? Yes. I've seen a lot of moments in stories that highlight the rivalry between Khorne and Slaanesh worshippers, but I've never seen much of anything that does the same for Tzeentch and Nurgle ones. Have I just missed it, or is it genuinely not there as often? I've not seen much in regards to that in terms of lore. I mean, obviously it does exist in lore, but in regards to story, In regards to stories, I haven't seen much either myself. If I had to guess, there might be some stories based in Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar that might delve into that a bit more, but as far as 40k is concerned, I haven't seen much in general. You mentioned how the Night Lords used to be the default Chaos Space Marines back in 2nd edition, rather than the Black Legion. Have any other factions had massive emphasis shifts like that over the years? There has been a few, yeah. The Imperial Guard come to mind because back in 2nd and I think 3rd as well, there was a huge focus on the Catachan Jungle Fighters regiments. Like in 3rd edition they even got their own codex supplement because of this. But these days it seems to be more focusing on Cadians from what I can see. With the Aeldari, back in 2nd edition, the huge emphasis seemed to be on Craftworld's Saim Han and maybe Ulfway, but then it seemed to shift towards Biotan in 3rd edition. There has been a few minor instances like that as well, like even with Space Marines, like back in 1st edition it was the Crimson Fists who got all the attention, and then in 2nd it was briefly the Blood Angels, but then it quickly shifted towards the Ultramarines, but then when 3rd edition came along, they seemed to put all their attention on the Black Templars briefly before going back to the Ultramarines. So yeah. Ghost Reaper asks, is it possible for the Drukhari to be unknowingly under the influence of Slaanesh through the homunculi cult, since they were the ones to discover that causing pain to others prolongs their lives, even though it also feeds Slaanesh? I was always under the impression that the reason that they do that was not so much extend their lives, but to stop Slaanesh from devouring their souls. Because when the fall happened, all their souls were basically marked by Slaanesh, and she is slowly consuming them even though they're still alive. And so causing pain and suffering to others basically keeps Slaanesh off their back, for lack of a better term. That was my understanding of it, though I could be wrong. Which traitor legion had the greatest number of Loyalist Space Marines and why? As far as I'm aware, it was the Iron Warriors, and the main reason for this was pretty much due to the fact that all the Loyalist elements were comprised of garrison forces that were basically forgotten. Like you had one Grand Battalion under the command of Keir Valen, who basically, like, when they found out that the Iron Warriors had turned traitor, their reaction was kind of like, what the fuck? Dude, not cool. Then you also had Narek Draeger's forces, which just basically turned against the Alpha Legion because the Alpha Legion were being dicks to them, treating them as cannon fodder, so they went, alright, fuck this, we're gonna side up with the Salamanders because they're cool. If the Necrons managed to fulfill their goal of snuffing out the psychic potential of the lesser races in order to combat chaos, how will the Tau be affected since it turns humans into mindless zombies? Since the psychic potential of the Tau is very minimal at this point, like far lower than humans, there is a potential possibility that it may not affect them at all, or if it does, not so much. I mean, it might affect the Ethereals more so than any other Tau because, let's be honest, we still don't know exactly how the Ethereals maintain control over the other castes. I know some people say it's pheromones, but there are sources that say that the Ethereals actually don't produce pheromones at all, so take your pick. but I think it might affect them, though not to the degree as it would a human. Tentadeus asks, if a planetary defense force or Imperial Guard regiment were to develop their own super soldiers, how angry would the Inquisition and Astartes be at them? I think they already tried that with the Afriel strain, which was basically an attempt to clone the greatest heroes of the Imperium to create super soldiers. It didn't go too well because they suffer from Lamenter's grade bad luck, shall we say. I'm not entirely sure how the Inquisition views them, though knowing some elements of the Inquisition they might have actually been bankrolling the project. Kari Wilfong asks, if you got dragged into a game of BattleTech, which faction would you choose and why? I know next to nothing about BattleTech, sorry, so I can't really say. I'm really sorry. That guy asks, what do you think was Horus's initial response to seeing Fulgrim's demon form, given his anger during their previous meeting when he presented him with Ferrus Manus' head? I think this was actually pointed out in... oh god, what was it? I think it was one of the Shadrach Medusan stories? I can't remember it, but it was the one where they used the Fire Raptor gunships to try and assassinate Horus, because that had Fulgrim and Mortarion there too, if I recall correctly. If I had to guess Horus's reaction, I think it would be like, what the hell has happened to you? Kind of thing, a combination of shock and disgust, I would imagine at first. Though I think there is still an official reaction out there. Brandon A asks, do you have any plans for doing a Gene Seed video for the Marines Malevolent? By the time this video comes out, that video will be out. Why doesn't Black Library put all their stories into print format when they know people will buy them? There are certain Horus Heresy stories that are online only. If I had to guess, cost. Because in print format, you need to get all the stories and put them into print. You need to, obviously, collect them in an anthology or something. Whereas a short story online, 99p for a short story online, where if you put it into print, you probably have to pay £20 for the whole book. So again, I think that's purely the reason why. Austin Horner asks, in the book Saturnine, a lot about the Emperor's past is revealed by the genetic mother of the Primarchs. Among the things revealed, it is said that the Primarchs were the Emperor's attempts at creating artificial perpetuals. Does this mean that Vulcan is the one true success of the Primarch project? I wouldn't call him the one true success. I think that Vulcan being a true perpetual came about purely as a result of, an accident. Because let's be honest, if you're going to try and create artificial perpetuals and you get a genuine perpetual out of it, that's pretty much a fluke. They're artificial perpetuals in the manner that they simply don't age. They are biologically immortal, even though they can be killed. Like in the Perturabo novel, for example, when they're fighting against the Hrud. The Hrud are using their time displacement aging technology, and most of the Iron Warriors are aging and dying and turning into dust, like they're being aged by about 3,000 years. Perturabo's hit by the weapon and he's completely unaffected, he's perfectly fine. So that suggests that, they do not age. Now bear in mind that both the Emperor and Erda are perpetuals, so if you've got two sources of genetic material coming from true perpetuals, then the odds are pretty high that at least one of their kids is also going to be a perpetual. Again, it's not so much him being a success, it's more like his true perpetuality came about through sheer fluke and chance. The book also mentions that the Sigillite is a perpetual. Assuming that this means Malcador, why do you believe that, unlike other perpetuals, Malcador seems to age even if at an incredibly slow rate? I really don't like the idea of Malcador being a perpetual. I think that kind of undermines his character quite a bit. Because this pretty much all started with that last council story where Jagatai Khan says to Malcador, I know who you are, Malcador the Wanderer, Malcador the Perpetual, blah 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 blah. And I think someone took that statement a bit too literally. Because I always interpreted Jagatai Khan's statement of Malcador the Perpetual as Malcador the Unchanging, and Malcador the, he's always the same, basically, he's always there, he's never changing, kind of thing, as opposed to him being a perpetual. So, if he is, in fact, an actual perpetual, I really don't have an answer for that. Aspertes asks, how are you? Are you taking care of your health and resting properly? Hope you have a happy and healthy week. Well, thank you very much. That's a very nice thing for you to say. Thank you. Doing as good as I can be, I guess. Connor Lonergan asks, have you ever come across mentions or agents of an organization known as the Templin Institute? I know of them. I haven't seen any of their stuff, but I know of them. Zero Hits asks, If you were a soldier in one of the many human armies of Warhammer Fantasy, which opposing army or race would you be most afraid of going up against and why? I'm going to assume that you mean races from Warhammer Fantasy, so... most obvious guess, an army of giants, because that'd be fucking terrifying, let's be bloody honest. But in all honesty, probably the Dark Elves, because they were described as the most evil race in Warhammer Fantasy, which is a pretty big deal, so I don't want to be sacrificed on a witch elf altar. Chief Surgeon asks, do you think Marshal Karis Venner is still alive after the Orphean War? Considering his forces made such a massive explosion in the Necron tomb complex that it could be seen from orbit, I doubt it very much. Dylan asks, do you read Black Library novels or listen to them? I used to listen to them, but now I pretty much read them exclusively. The Evil Scotsman asks, what happened to the Thousand Suns dreadnoughts after Prospero? Did any survive, and if so, what became of them? Some dreadnoughts did survive, yes. It's implied that they also succumbed to the effects of the rubric in Imperial Armor Volume 13, I think it was. The War Machines of the Lost and the Damned, because there are Thousand Suns Castroferum dreadnoughts, and they were described as basically going silent after the rubric was cast, even though they're still able to be used upon the battlefield, so it's implied that they also succumbed to the effects of the rubric. And finally, Kenju22 asks, if during the process of clearing out a Space Hulk, a large repository of several thousand pure, untainted, unmutated, pre-heresy traitor legion gene seed was discovered, would it simply be purged, or might it get mislabeled due to how rare and valuable such pure gene seed is? I think at the very least the Adeptus Mechanicus might want to take a look at it because, hey, it's a shit ton of gene seed, you know, it seems pure, you might want to do some tests on it just to make sure it is pure. Best case scenario, I can imagine it being sent back to Terra before it's locked away within the gene seed vaults. Worst case scenario will probably be just burned. But again, because of how rare and precious gene seed actually is, it's more than likely to be sent back to Terra, if nothing else. And that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this is Remlace from 40k Theories, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!